Welcome to the Plant Free MD podcast with Dr.
Hello, everyone.
Anthony
It's
Chaffee,
Dr. Anthony Chaffee.
where we discuss
here with
diet
another
and
episode of
nutrition
the Plant
and how
Free
this affects
MD.
health and chronic
Thank
disease.
you all for joining. And
show
today
you
I
how
have
you
a very
can use
special
this
guest,
to optimize your health and
Jennifer
happiness, both
Geissert,
mentally and
by
physically.
Jen. Jen, how are you? Good to see you.
I'm so good. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, you're very welcome. So Jen and I have spoken several times over Instagram. She showed me her before and after pictures, her success story, and she's got quite a wonderful result and story with Carnivore Diet. So I was happy to bring her on and share her story with all of you. So Jen, thank you for doing that, first of all. And if you wouldn't mind, could you tell us a bit about yourself and what your experience has been with the Carnivore Diet?
Sure. So I am 38. I live in Kansas. I'm a doctor of physical therapy. I have a Doberman that's also on a carnivore diet. But my story with the carnivore diet kind of goes way back. I haven't been a carnivore that long, but when I was 7, I got diagnosed with psoriasis. And so that was sort of an ongoing problem for my entire life, basically. And then in my early 30s, I would say, it started to get pretty bad, to the point that my dermatologist wanted to put me on some different biologics and, very heavy duty drugs to treat it. And I was very resistant for a long time because I didn't want to rock the boat with such strong medications. And I just, I was scared, and I was only having really cosmetic issues. So I thought, no, I'm gonna wait on this. I'll just continue wearing long sleeves and pants all the time, regardless of the weather. But eventually I gave in it was in 2019 that I finally gave in and decided to go on a biologic medication, and it completely cleared my skin. It was like a miracle. I was so happy. But within a month, I started having the worst sore throats I'd ever had in my life. And I went to a doctor and they tested for strep and everything was normal, but it just never went away. I just had I had beautiful clear skin, but a terrible sore throat for at least 6 months. Then I finally got tested again, and then I did have a strep throat. So the reason this is all tied in is that 6 months after going on this medication, I had a strep throat. I was seeing multiple doctors, my regular doctor, an ENT, like an ear, nose, and throat doctor. They were putting me on all these different medications because nothing would get rid of the strep. And of course, they said, well, you're immunocompromised from this injection you take for psoriasis, and that may be why this is so difficult to treat. But over the course of a week or two and trying to treat that, I ended up with this horrible rash all over my body that wasn't psoriasis. It turned out to be leukocytoclastic vasculitis. Basically, I was like exploding from the inside out, and my body was covered in this rash. And I swear to God, I thought I was going to die. I was like writing emails for my friend to give my mom with all my passwords for my banking and my life insurance and stuff. I really thought this may be the end of my life. And so I know that's dramatic now in retrospect, but that's how dramatic it felt. And so turns out that my strep throat was so bad, I ended up having to be in the hospital on IV antibiotics for several days to get rid of that strep throat. And as that got better, the vasculitis did get better, but it kind of came and went a little bit over the next 6 months or so. Very much related to my diet. Especially if I would drink alcohol or eat sugar, I would get these little vasculitis flares and it would scare me straight, and I'd stop drinking that. But then 6 months later, I just blew up in psoriasis. So my body was covered head to toe, way worse than it had ever been prior to being on medication for my psoriasis. And at that time, I was still on that medication. So I was just fed up. I mean, I had had the worst year of my life health-wise with the throat and the vasculitis and now the psoriasis. And I had seen so many doctors and nobody could really help. They just kind of all wanted to try different medicines and different creams. And I was just miserable. And all the while, I was still working and living a normal life, but couldn't sleep at night because my sheets touching me was torture. My clothes touching me was torture. I mean, it was just a nightmare. And so finally I went to see a naturopath. And frankly, he didn't help me that much either. He did a bunch of testing, stool tests and urine and blood and allergy tests, and nothing really came back all that strange. but he had a nutritionist that he encouraged me to see. And she just happened to be learning about the carnivore diet herself. And so she told me about it.
Mhm.
And at first I thought it was the craziest thing I'd ever heard. But then it was like, what have I got to lose, right? I've tried everything. This is something I haven't tried. And she told me about stories like Michaela Peterson. So I left there and looked up all that kind of stuff and just felt like this is the thing I need to do. And so that's how I got introduced to the carnivore diet. And we'll fast forward a bit, like that's the thing that finally healed me.
Hey guys, just want to take a second to thank our sponsor, Carnivore Bar. I don't promote many products because honestly, all you need to be healthy is to just eat meat. For those times that you're out hiking, road tripping, or stuck at work and you want a nutritious snack that is just meat, fat, and salt if you want it, the Carnivore Bar is a great option. So I like this product not because it's just pure meat, but also because I want the carnivore market to thrive as well. And the more we support meat-only products, the more meat-only products there will be available in the mainstream. So if this sounds like something you'd like to get behind, check it out using my discount code Anthony to get 10% off, which also applies to subscriptions, giving you 25% off total. All right. Thanks, guys.
Yeah. Well, that's fantastic. So how long ago was that you went on a carnivore diet, and then how long did it take for all of these things to resolve? Because I mean, it's quite serious by the sounds of it. You are having some very, very serious issues.
Yeah, so it's a bit complicated because she's the one who told me about the diet, and this was in 2020.
Mhm.
And with the first month of doing the diet, my skin was getting worse. Now, I don't know if I was just on that trajectory, my skin was just going to get worse anyway, or if it was from the change of diet or who knows what, but it was getting worse. But then at about the 6-month mark, it started getting better, just a little bit, giving me hope. And so, I was still on my medication at that time. So I think that may have been helping too. I don't know. Maybe it was hurting. It's so hard to know. But within 6 months, my skin was completely clear.
Mhm.
But I was struggling a little bit because I had kind of approached the diet as this is an elimination diet. I'm not going to do it forever, like clear my skin and then go back to eating normally. Well, that doesn't work so well for me because I have a history of binge eating since about age 15. And so as soon as I started adding things back in, it was just bad news bears. So I never got to the point where my skin was getting worse again, but again, I was still on my medication. So, but I did sort of spiral a bit with the binging. And so fast forward to February of 2022, just over a year ago, that's when I sort of had this complete mind frame reset of like, nope, I feel best as a carnivore. There is no in between for me, especially as a former binge eater. I don't want my skin to go back to looking like that. And I want to get off this medication because, I mean, it's poison. Like you can't get pregnant if you're on it because it will poison the baby. It makes me immunocompromised and more at risk for other things. Like it's terrible. I don't want to keep taking this. So about a year and 3 months ago or so is when I went 100% carnivore, haven't cheated once, never looked back. And about 8 months ago is when I finally got off all my medications and my skin is clear and I'm doing better than ever. No binging, no skin stuff. It's just been, again, like a miracle, but it wasn't this easy linear path either. It was sort of a little bumpy for the first year or so.
Yeah, which I think is a very important thing to point out because especially with psoriasis and other sort of skin conditions, they can be quite stubborn, and people hear success stories like yours. They have a very difficult time with psoriasis and other issues, and it works and it gets better, and you're like, wow, look how bad it was, and look how great I am now, and they think that it may do that for them very, very quickly, and in some cases it can. I mean, I do know people that have had a very quick response, and in a matter of a couple months, they're doing a lot better. Other people, it's much more stubborn, much more stubborn. And I get messages from people saying, "Hey, I've been doing this for 3 months. It's not getting better. What's going on?" It's like, well, look, you're still early days. You just keep going with it, and you'll get there. And either way, eating the other way isn't going to help. It's going to make it worse. And this will help you in a lot of other ways also, but you need time to heal. You need time for this stuff to settle down.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think a lot of people in my comments say, oh, my skin was healed and all that, within a few months. But I imagine depending on how mild your skin is, that would make a difference. If it was terrible like mine, that takes longer. But also, like you said, I mean, we're all just different and different healing times and different bodies. And I think for me, I did find that some foods that are technically carnivore, I still had to cut those out, like dairy, for example. And I know you've always said don't drink coffee. Most people rebel and do it anyway, and I did for a long time, but I've definitely found that coffee absolutely exacerbates my symptoms. So I've had to basically get rid of it. But it's one thing to have to get rid of it. It's another to realize this causes me health problems. I want to get rid of it. And so that feels a little less restrictive.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the thing too, is that, you know, you can see that directly in your body. And I think that's why it's nice to at least start, or at least have a period of like 30 days where you're just eating nothing but meat and water, and really just getting everything out. And then you can see, and then you try coffee back in and be like, well, you know, it's not that big of a deal. Or maybe it is a big deal. Maybe you have this huge reaction and you get, you know, your symptoms are a lot worse. But at least you know that now. You have that information. And, you know, the argument goes, well, in the dosages that we're eating them, these plants are actually good for you. You know, yes, there are defense chemicals. Yes, there are these harmful things, but, you know, no, they aren't harming you. And, you know, the marker for that is, for a poison, is apparently death. Because they say like, oh, well, you know, I ate spinach and I didn't die. And like, okay, that's, no one ever said you would. But, you know, if you have Crohn's, you'll get a flare up. You know, if you have psoriasis, it'll make your skin worse. And so what is that? That's obviously a poison. Your body's reacting negatively towards it. That's not good for you. That's not providing a hormetic or benefit or any other kind of benefit. It's causing harm. And so, you know, while, you know, I don't know many people that have died of psoriasis, it doesn't make it a nice thing to live with. And it doesn't mean that you're not being poisoned. It's not that you're not being harmed by the thing that you're eating. And you drink coffee and you get this. Well, that means there's something in coffee that's doing that to you.
Yeah, it's too bad.
Yeah. So what does life look like now, as far as what you're eating? Are you pretty strict on just meat and water, or you stick to like ruminant animals and beef, or can you have a bit of leeway there?
I cycle a bit. At the beginning of the year, I did the lion diet just kind of to celebrate World Carnivore Month, but because also my skin did start to seem a bit more sensitive once I went off my medication. So I wanted to make sure that everything I'm eating really is agreeing with me. And so for a little over a month, I ate beef, lamb, salt, water. That was it. And then I added back egg. Well, I tried coffee, found out that was a no-go. I added back eggs with no problem, chicken and seafood with no problem. And pork is still a little questionable. You know, sometimes with skin stuff, I mean, it's not like my psoriasis is coming back, so I can't know for sure, but I do know I don't feel as well with pork, and that I just have more kind of itching with my skin. So I try to limit it, but mostly I eat beef, a little bit of chicken and seafood and eggs and salt. I really avoid seasonings too, because they seem to irritate me, or maybe secretly have some kind of sugar or something in them, and then it makes me kind of snacky. So yeah, it's pretty boring. Beef, other meat besides much pork. Like I've basically had to give up bacon because it's too addictive and makes me a little itchy. And then water, salt.
Yeah. I don't know if that's it's not restrictive to me. It's the only thing I want to eat anyway. You know, if I wasn't allowed to eat beef, I'd think that would be restrictive, you know. And
Yeah, you're right. It's the most delicious foods. The only problem I have is I want to be able to make recipes and stuff for social media, and you just can't do a lot of really good recipes without dairy. So that's a bummer, but I'd rather have clear skin than recipe videos on social media, I guess.
Can you do butter? Or not really?
I haven't tried adding it back. I've just been a little nervous about it, but I have a suspicion that I would be able to do it without much problem. So
Ghee,
I'll give that a go eventually.
yeah, and then like ghee would have the proteins taken out as well. So that might, have you tried cooking with ghee and things like that?
I haven't. Do you
No.
think that would be the best thing to add first? Because I'd love
Get
some
started.
buttered egg.
Yeah. Yeah, ghee, I think, yeah, clarified butter is it's just the fat, and they've taken out the protein. It also has a higher smoke point, so it's better to cook with than butter as well. but it's still sort of a buttery, smooth, creamy taste as well. But it's not the same as butter. It is different. It does taste different. But that's like what you would use for crab and lobster. Normally you'd have clarified butter with lobster. And so that's the classic combination with that. So that's just ghee. It's just ghee as a clarified butter. The reason I ask is because, you know, my dalliance with you know, cooking things and making recipes was basically I just cooked up like a whole bunch of steak and chopped it up into little cubes and had like a big bowl full of melted butter. And I was like, heap of meat with melted butter. Like, follow me for more recipe ideas. So that to me, it's like the perfect recipe. So you could do something like that.
There you go. I mean,
Yeah.
I would love it.
Yeah. But you know, but I mean, there's a lot. I think the way to do it is like there's different ways of preparing meat, aging it, not aging it, roasting it, grilling it, smoking it, you know, pan frying it, but how do you do it? You know, there's little sort of idiosyncrasies, and you'd be surprised how many recipes there are and how many different ways there are of cooking meat as well. My mom is very much a foodie and a gourmet, and she like just loves cooking. She just loves the science of it. She loves the experience of it, and she loves being able to provide really nice food for her family. That was her sort of her expression of love, was making really wonderful meals for us all, which was wonderful. And that really stung her when she couldn't make all these recipes. Like, she literally has over 500 cookbooks. She has read them all. She has used them all. And she loves them, and she loves using them. And so she was a very grumpy little mommy for a while about that. And she's like, I hate this. I don't like this. It's stupid, you know? And like, but you know, but then, you know, after a month, you know, when her blood sugars were just very much in control, and, you know, she was like, all right, well, I guess I should probably stick to this for a little longer. And then she got her HbA1c back and basically reversed her diabetes, her, you know, 30-year diabetes, in 2 months, you know, and come off her medications and insulin, and or reduce significantly her insulin. Now she's completely off her insulin, and she's like, okay, all right, well, I can't not do this. So, you know, I started telling her, I was just like, well, look, you know a lot about this, you know a lot about cooking, like, just put that towards meat, you know. And, you know, there are a lot of recipes you can do, a lot of recipes she didn't use for a long time, like Julia Child recipes that uses a lot of, you know, cream and butter and in meats. And she hasn't been able to use those forever because my dad wanted us to go Pritikin back in the 70s, because I was the heart healthy diet, was the Pritikin diet, was like no fat. And so my mom wasn't able to use her Julia Child cookbooks anymore. And I've reminded her, I was like, hey, you can use Julia Child now. She's like, yes. She started getting happy about that. And then she started finding other cookbooks and other chefs that just focused on meat and did lots of meat and big roasts and steaks, or even, you know, grilling like an entire cow in one go up on this like giant frame, like a giant steel frame. And so there's actually way more out there than you'd think. And you can try those and just have that sort of cooking channel where it's just like for just people like you and I that just want to do meat. There's cool ways of cooking meat.
I love it. Challenge accepted.
Yeah, there you go. There was I'll tell you the name next time I see it, but my mom actually sent me a book. It was like sort of like, it was like the cottage book of meats or something like that. I don't know. It's like this British dude or something like that. It's just all, I mean, it's thick. It's like a big hardcover book, and it's thick, and it's just full of different ways of cooking meat. So yeah, there's plenty of options out there, but we just don't use them all that much, you know. And so because we don't need to, you know, we're doing other stuff, and most people have lost the art of cooking as well. And so we just we just don't come across these things that much anymore.
Yeah. Well, something to look into. And I mean, I like that my life isn't so overcome by food and prep and shopping. You know, that's also simple now, and I do love that. I guess I'm just, you know, trying to please others. But you're right. There's like 100 million ways to cook food, and you can show them how to do that and learn as I go. I actually just got a sous vide yesterday, so I'm experimenting with that, which is kind of fun.
Oh, very good. Did you get Are you using plastic bags or silicone bags, or what are you using?
Well, it came with plastic. I actually
Mhm.
didn't know that there were other options out there. So I guess I'll have
Yeah.
to look into that.
Yeah, you can get silicone sous vide bags. That's what my mom does. Um, and so she told me about them. I mean, it's not going to get as form fitting as a plastic bag. So there's a bit of a deficit there, but um, but you're not sort of cooking this stuff in these plastics that are going to leach into the meat, and that's the PBAs um and the other ones that simulate the same effects, the estrogenic effects of these different plastics can get in there. Even the ones that say like food safe, and it doesn't have those bad kinds of plastics. They don't have the bad kinds of plastics, but they have other kinds of plastics that do the exact same thing as the bad kind of plastics. So, it's just one of those things that they've just sort of switched the chemical compound just slightly, and they're like, oh, hey, oh, this is different, and then it's just like, no, but it works exactly the same. And then they're going to show that, and then they're going to change it slightly differently and go down the chain. That's just normally how that works. Sort of like those head shops that they would sell like drugs that were definitely drugs, but just weren't technically illegal because they took like cocaine or meth and they just changed one little molecule on it. So it's not technically the chemical, cocaine, and so, or methamphetamines or whatever, or heroin. It's technically different. And so it's not technically illegal, and they don't sell it for human consumption. It's like plant food, or bath salts. That was a big thing for a while, was those bath salts, and clearly horrible for you. Like a lot of very bad things happen with that. But then they say, okay, well, that's bad, that we're going to criminalize that. And so then they, oh, okay, and then they just slightly change it, and they would just do that. They got shut down eventually, but that was sort of the game they were playing. But people are going to play those games with everything, and they do that with plastic too. So um yeah, so that's like, if I do sous vide, I generally do it with silicone bags.
I didn't know you were going to teach me so much today. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Check it out.
Yeah. Well, it's good, I mean, like, so I love sous vide though. Like, it's a fantastic way of cooking, and it's really convenient, especially for like tougher cuts of meat, which are the cheaper cuts of meat, and the more flavorful cuts of meat, like chuck and chuck roast and things like that. They're great, but they just need to be cooked, low and slow for a long time, and sous vide's perfect for that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So have you incorporated this into your work and your practice?
No, and that's been a big struggle.
Mm.
So I'm a physical therapist in the hospital. So I'm working
Oh,
with
okay.
people in very acute phases of their illness or their stroke or whatever. And so not only do I see what they're eating, and I'm maybe even helping them order their meals from the kitchen, but I also am in there when the doctor's like, go on a low fat diet and take these statins and and it's just like, oh my gosh, what are we doing to these people? It's
Mm,
so frustrating and so difficult. But I just, my role in the hospital is part of a team, and I'm not really the person on the team that's supposed to be giving diet advice in this case. So I really feel like I can't overstep. And so I help when I can. If I'm in the room and they're ordering breakfast, I'll say, the omelets are really good, or, get some bacon, but I can't really say, you need to limit your carbs and do the opposite of what your doctor's telling you. I just don't really have that privilege in the setting I work in.
mm.
So it's been a constant struggle for me.
Yeah. Yeah, that does suck, and it's very difficult. Yeah, well, just for everybody who doesn't know, what are your thoughts on hospital food and what they're feeding everyone?
I mean, it's just so bad, so bad. I mean, it's not uncommon for me to see a 35-year-old with type 1 diabetes out of control. They're 100 pounds, they're on an insulin drip, and their breakfast is like pancakes and orange juice. And technically, they're on a carb restriction, but it's like 65 carbs a meal. And I mean, they don't really adhere to it, or maybe they can get outside food brought in or something, or, they're just not eating at all. So it's like, we'll just give them whatever they'll take. We're just poisoning them. But honestly, the thing that really, really gets me is the tube feeds. It's
Mm,
just like sugar and chemicals that we're feeding these people in the ICU that can't eat. And I don't think this is part of the living will, but I want to put it in my living will that if I needed to feed, I either want somebody to mechanically mushify some meat and give me
Mm,
that, or just let me fast, or just let me die, honestly, because I
mm.
can only imagine how much that would kick off all my health issues if I were to have basically a going right to my gut liquid sugar and chemicals.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just carbs and sugar. It's just all carbs and sugar. It's cereals, sweetened yogurts, juice, fruit cups with added sugar, and nothing of substance, like a slice of Lunchables, lunch meat or something like that. It's quite crazy. It's sometimes you can get an egg, maybe two if you're lucky. But yeah, it's really surprising to me, what we are feeding people and thinking that it's healthy. I mean, even if you don't like saturated fat, that sort of thing, and you're in that camp, why would you think that processed foods that didn't exist even 50 years ago, 100 years ago, certainly not 1,000, 2,000, 10,000 years ago, why do you think that would be better? Why do you think that would be good for people? Processed garbage over like actual whole foods. Obviously, it's harder, when you're catering to an entire hospital to make, fresh prepared meals with, whole ingredients and things like that. There's a limitation there, but I just think you can do better than sugar cereals. And like literally, I see it all the time. They like give people packets of cigarette, or it's not cigarettes, probably that too, packets of sugar, to obviously add to their tea and to put on on their cereal, and they just add sugar to their cornflakes or like already sugary cereal. And it's just like, why would you do that? Why in God's name would you do that? These people are in the hospital. These are people that need proper nutrition the most, but so many people just don't realize the impact that nutrition has.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely put a lot of the blame on the system, but truly it's the patients too. And I think,
Yeah.
part it's
Well,
just their choice, but also just their lack of knowledge. They don't
mm,
understand. And maybe we need to do a better job of
yeah.
educating them on what they really need to be eating, especially while they're healing.
Yeah.
So we've got a big job on our hands.
Yeah. Well, there are studies showing that fasting can help with wound healing and and as well as ketogenic diets, and especially with like brain injuries, TBI, traumatic brain injuries, and even strokes. Makes a dramatic difference. The ketones can cross freely into the brain. They can reconstitute as fatty acids and can actually regrow your brain, and that's what your brain needs when it's been injured. So there are studies that show this, and people are aware of them. It's just maybe they're not putting it into practice yet. But you know, um, it's nice, yeah, because it's not always appropriate to push this sort of stuff at the hospital when your role is something else.
Mhm.
But something that does come up sometimes, and I find as a convenient segue, is when they comment, it's like, oh wow, you're in very good shape, what are you eating, or something like that. I'm like, well, just I'll let you know, and I just eat meat. And they're like, wait, no you don't, like just like meat and veg, like no veg. Like, really? I was like, oh yeah, no, it's not great for you. And they're like, wait, what, really? And I was just like, like, well, I'm on rounds, I have to go do this, but if you want, you guys can look into it. It's called a carnivore diet and things like that. And so people do, and then they contact me later going like, oh, I've just been looking into this, this is awesome. And my wife's on it now, and we're all doing great and things like that. So that's been really nice. But yeah, it's that's one of the nicer things about working in like a outside practice, where you're like in functional medicine, where you're on a more one-on-one basis, and your job there is to address their diet and lifestyle issues, you know in order to address their health issues, to try and get them healthy, address the root cause of these issues, and get them off medication and get them away from the hospital setting. And that's been very nice to be able to do that as well. And it's very frustrating to see people that are very sick and need the most help get the worst nutrition possible.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, are you on your online though? You say you have people that contact you and follow you. I think you mentioned before that you do one-on-one sessions with people as well. Is that to try to help them with a carnivore diet?
Yes, so I've actually gone part-time as a physical therapist. I'm working just 20 hours a week, and then full-time I'm creating content for social media regarding the carnivore diet, and I'm working with clients and doing different things to try to help people as much as I can. But yeah, specifically, I think people that are dealing with autoimmune conditions, even more specifically skin ones, it's just like I said, it's not a linear process, and going on this diet can change so many people's lives, and it can be simple, just eat meat.
Mm.
But sometimes you need a little bit more than that. You need somebody to tell you, like, it's okay that things are a little worse right now. They're going to get better. And here are some things you can try to eliminate and then add back in. It's just a bit of a bumpy road that some guidance can be helpful. And so that's where I'm really focusing a lot of my energy to try to help those people.
Oh, that's really good. And is there a general theme of things that trip people up, especially with autoimmune or psoriasis, that you see that can normally help people if they know to avoid it?
Well, I think just things that seem like foods or drinks that are not triggering. So, for
Mhm.
example, coffee, so many people are like, oh, coffee's fine. And I've given it up for 30 days before and I didn't notice any difference. But then once you take everything out besides ruminant meats and then you slowly add things back one at a time, you can really realize, nope, the coffee wasn't so good for me. Maybe those symptoms were being masked by something else. So yeah, I just find that elimination can be really, really helpful. Now, for me, um, fa fasting is also very helpful, but like I
Mm.
mentioned, I have a history with binging, so I have to be really careful with that. Otherwise, I haven't binged since I've been a carnivore, but I can kind of recognize some of those feelings and tendencies. So I have to be careful with that. But I think that it seems to be quite helpful for some people with autoimmune stuff. But then, there's just that little piece of, well, how do you feel emotionally and mentally about it? Because it may or may not be a good tool for you. So that kind of thing it requires a little nuance as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And then what about skin treatments? I've spoken to some people and they said that their psoriasis actually seemed to improve like just using tallow. It was like a moisturizer. Have you do you know anything about that?
Yes, so that's another thing. There are several things that I found very, very helpful during the healing process. The diet is what I think is going to get to the root of the problem,
Mhm.
but lots of exfoliating, soaking in Epsom salt baths, using as natural of moisturizer as possible. So tallow, or honestly, even like a shea butter, even if that's what you can get your hands on. Any of those things are really soothing and really helpful. Because I mean, this may be a bit graphic, but anyone with psoriasis knows it's like you sleep in a bed and the bed is covered in flakes, or
Yeah.
you just barely scratch your leg and the floor is covered in flakes. And that's
Mhm.
just humiliating and so
Yeah.
uncomfortable. So keeping things exfoliated and as moist as possible will not only help with the itching, but will help cut down on that horribly embarrassing flaking situation.
Yeah. Well, that's good. And so you got rid of basically all the medicated treatments and you just went just straight, just natural, just diet, and then just, the tallow or shea butter sort of moisturizer, and you found that that worked better.
Yeah, now again, I was still on my immunosuppressant
Mhm.
medication beginning of the process. I'm now off of that, thankfully. But that's a scary thing too. And I think that's something that some guidance can be useful, because when your skin is so bad and you're on a medication and you're going to start this diet, it's I don't know. I think it could have pushed me over the edge to
Mhm.
to go off of everything and try to do the diet and then watch my skin get worse. That just seems like a nightmare. So I felt like I kind of needed to do one step at a time. And I'm not saying I did it right or wrong, that you should stop taking meds immediately or that you should wait longer than I did, but I
Mhm.
think you should feel comfortable about it, because if you're just stressed and worried about it, that's not good for your skin either. So getting to the place where you feel good, your symptoms are under control, you're not struggling with the diet, for me, at least, that was when it was a good time to give up that medication. But yes, as far as the topical stuff, the topical steroids and such, I did not find any benefit from them above what just the natural, like tallow and Epsom salt and exfoliating. And I did do a little bit of tanning as well, because it was winter at parts of the time when I was healing, and there's just not a lot of sunshine in Kansas in the winter. It's freezing. So that helped some. And now I do try to really seek out sunshine, especially in the summer months when it's warm, and that really helps too. So it's kind of this puzzle, and you can put all these pieces together, and it helps so much. Every little piece helps, but putting them together helps so much more.
Nice. And so how long have you been doing the online work and helping people, with coaching?
I started my Instagram page just about a year ago. And so, I mean, I've been helping people for free that way for a long time. As far as actually working with people, it's just been a few months.
Oh, very cool. And is it mostly Instagram? Do you have other social media sites and where you put your videos and things like that?
I am most active on Instagram. Just about every day I'm on there. But I also have a YouTube channel,
Mhm.
and I also have a TikTok. And they're all the same. Delighted to meet you. MEAT. Delighted to meet you. And then I have a website, delightedtomeetyou.com.
Nice. Okay. And
It's
what can they,
actually,
sorry?
I was gonna say, it's actually still under construction, but by the
Yeah.
time you post this, it may be up and running.
Probably. There's a bit of a delay on these things. So this might not be out for a little bit. And I'm going to England. So this, I don't know. People, this may or may not be out before or after that trip to England. So I apologize if it's after. But it'll give you some time to get the website up and running. So that's some good encouragement. And okay, great. So um, if you could, someone's starting this from scratch, someone who is just seeing this for the first time, had known nothing about, carnivore or anything like that, has a psoriasis, was you back in 2019. What is a key piece of advice that you could give to somebody in your situation, just facing this right now?
Gosh, that's tough. If I could give a couple things. One is have hope that there is something that's going to help you. And frankly, if you cannot buy into the carnivore diet, then find something. Don't just live like that. I mean, there's nothing more hopeless than just saying, this is just life for me, and this is how it's just going to be. And I see so many people like that, and it breaks my heart. But if you're watching this, I doubt that's you, especially if you've watched this far. So I would definitely suggest that, diving into the diet. Again, even if this exact diet is not the perfect fit for you, find the thing that is, the thing that feels good, that feels nourishing, and is not making you worse. You're not addicted to it. It's just at least whole foods at the very minimum. But if you're willing to dive in carnivore, that's what I would suggest. Dive right in and educate yourself as much as possible. Watch YouTube videos and Instagram, and do as much research as you can on the things that people are going to say, well, your cholesterol this and your heart this and stroke and there's no nutrients, and that is all inaccurate. So the more information you have by educating yourself, the better you're going to feel about it, but also the better you can kind of help others too, as you explain to them, nope, meat is actually very nutritious, and nope, doesn't matter if my LDL went up a little, my triglycerides are super low and my HDL is really high. You'll understand all of this as you start to research. So just have hope and fill your brain with as much knowledge as you can. Those are, I suppose, the two main themes here.
Yeah, well, I would definitely agree with all of that. And so, well, great. Well, Jen, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate your time. And I think that is a very encouraging story for a lot of people, because especially with psoriasis, people can get very, very discouraged, especially if they don't see immediate success and benefits. And so just to reassure them that it will get better. It may get a bit worse at first, but just to keep going with it, and eventually you'll get through.
Yes, thank you so much for having me and helping me to share this story. I'm so happy to help anybody that I can.
Yeah, absolutely. And put all of your contact details and links in the description, but obviously it's pretty easy for people to remember. Delighted to meet you, spelled MEAT. Great, Jen. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next time.
Hey, thank you.
No problem. And thank you everyone for joining. If you like that and you think you know someone with psoriasis or someone who would benefit from this, please do send this on to them if you think it would help them. And please like and subscribe and share this and leave a comment. It definitely helps get the word out. So thank you all, and we'll see you next time.
Hey guys, thank you very much for taking the time out to listen to what I had to say. If you like it, then please like and subscribe to my YouTube channel and podcast. And if you're on YouTube, then please hit that little bell and subscribe, and that'll let you know anytime I have a new video out, which should be every week, if not more. And if you could share this with your friends, that would help me get the word out and let me know that you like what I'm doing. Thanks again, guys.